Welcome to one of the most disturbing cases ever recorded in history. Before we begin, I invite you to leave a comment indicating where you are watching from and the exact time you're listening to this narration. We are interested in knowing which places and at what times of day or night these documented accounts reach the vast, unforgiving plains of the Texas frontier, stretching in sun-baked, seemingly infinite expanse beneath an endless, indifferent sky are often depicted as the rugged stage for quintessential tales of the Wild West, narratives populated by resilient cowboys, notorious outlaws, and the relentless pioneering march of burgeoning civilization. Yet beneath this familiar, almost romanticized narrative, the windswept Texas badlands also serve as a silent, ancient witness to a deeper, far more insidious, and profoundly cosmic horror that defies all earthly understanding, a terror that predates even the arrival of man. In the unforgiving decade of the 1870s, a determined homesteading family, seeking nothing more than a fresh start and the promise of a life carved from the wilderness, found their lives irrevocably twisted into a waking nightmare by an anomaly that scorned all natural law, a colossal, inexplicable, obsidian black stone that hummed with an otherworldly resonant energy, a pervasive, insidious vibration that seemed to emanate from the very bedrock of existence. This isn't merely a tale of frontier hardship and human resilience. It is the harrowing account of an ancient alien entity that whispered directly into their minds, meticulously dismantling their very sense of self, preying upon their deepest, most primal fears, and ultimately stealing their identities, their very souls, making them mere extensions of its cold, incomprehensible, alien will. Did the terrifying secret of that stone descend from the fathomless, silent cosmic void, a relic from beyond the stars, or did it awaken from the primordial, unimaginable depths of the earth itself, a latent power stirring from aeons of slumber? And could it still lie there, patiently waiting beneath the seemingly tranquil surface of the land, its ancient hum vibrating just beneath the threshold of human perception, beckoning its next unsuspecting victim to surrender to its terrifying, all-consuming embrace? The Texas frontier in the 1870s was a land of stark, brutal contrasts, offering both the tantalizing promise of unparalleled opportunity and the crushing reality of profound despair. Following the devastating scars of the Civil War, the enticing allure of free land under the Homestead Act drew thousands of resilient, often desperate families westward. They were seeking not just a new beginning, but a chance to rebuild shattered lives, to carve out a fresh existence from the untamed, indifferent wilderness, hoping to escape the ghosts of the past and forge a new legacy. These pioneers faced a relentless gauntlet of hardships, scorching, merciless summers that baked the earth to a brittle crisp, unforgiving droughts that withered crops and strained spirits, deadly sudden blizzards that swept down from the north, unexpected native conflicts, and the ever-present insidious threat of disease that could claim a life in a matter of days. Yet their spirit was largely unbroken, their collective dreams fueled by the vast open plains that promised infinite possibilities and the enduring, almost desperate hope of prosperity and peace. It was into this crucible of immense hardship, profound hope, and simmering danger that the Miller family arrived, their wagon heavily laden with all their worldly possessions, their hearts heavy with hope. John Miller, a veteran of the Civil War, a man scarred more profoundly by the harrowing memories of combat and the psychological toll of witnessed atrocities than by any physical wound, a figure of quiet determination and stoic, almost unshakable. Resilience led his family from their failing, drought-stricken farm in rural Missouri. He was in his late 40s, his face a road map of hard-won experience and unspoken suffering, his eyes carrying the heavy, distant burden of witnessed horrors, yet still flickering with a spark of hope for his family. His wife Sarah, a woman of profound inner strength, unwavering faith, and gentle demeanor. In her early 40s, had weathered countless personal hardships by his side, her quiet fortitude a stark, yet essential contrast to the brutal, unforgiving landscape. With them came their 2 children, 17-year-old Thomas, a strong, diligent, and earnest boy, eager to prove himself worthy of his father's legacy, to help build a new life, a new homestead, from the ground up. And 12-year-old Emily, a curious, imaginative, and often wistful girl, often lost in the labyrinthine worlds of her cherished books, her spirit untamed by the vast, oppressive solitude of the plains, her imagination a vibrant escape. They staked their claim in a particularly isolated section of West Texas, a place so remote it seemed forgotten by time, miles from the nearest nascent settlement, a place where the sky stretched endlessly in every direction, an overwhelming blue expanse, and the only sounds were the persistent whisper of the relentless wind and the distant, mournful cry of coyotes. They toiled relentlessly from dawn till dusk, their hands calloused and raw, building a small, sturdy wooden homestead from local timber, digging a deep well through the resistant earth, and attempting to tame a small, stubborn patch of land. For crops, their dreams as vast and boundless as the plains themselves. Their nearest neighbors, the O'Malley family, lived a full day's brutal ride away, their distant presence a mere fleeting thought, a distant, almost intangible comfort in the crushing solitude. For the first few arduous months, life was brutally hard, a constant battle against the elements and the sheer indifference of the land. But it was also filled with the quiet, profound satisfaction of self-sufficiency, of a family united in a common, hopeful purpose. They faced the relentless, scorching sun that blistered their skin, the sudden, choking dust storms that turned day into oppressive night, and the vast, soul-crushing solitude of the Texas plains, a solitude that amplified every fear, every doubt. But they were together, their tight-knit family unit, a resilient bulwark against the encroaching, untamed wilderness. John, exhausted but undeniably proud of their hard-won progress, often told Sarah, his voice rough but tender, "This is our second chance, my dear. God has blessed us with this land, with this opportunity." Yet a subtle, insidious unease, an almost imperceptible shift in the atmosphere, began to settle over their homestead. The silence of the plains, once a comforting blanket, now seemed to press in, a heavy, almost conscious presence, watchful and malevolent. The wind, instead of a gentle, soothing whisper, sometimes carried strange, indistinct murmurs that seemed to shift and coalesce just at the edge of hearing, like a half-forgotten spectral song from another time, another place. Emily, often the most sensitive, the first to notice such ethereal subtleties, began to complain of strange, vivid, and increasingly disturbing dreams, filled with a deep, pulsating hum that resonated within her very being, and towering, impossible, shapes that seemed to twist the very fabric of reality into grotesque parodies. Her usually bright, curious eyes began to show undeniable traces of a persistent exhaustion, a lingering weariness that no amount of sleep could dispel, a haunted quality, the true genesis of their nightmare. The moment their fragile peace began its irreversible descent into terror began on a scorching, unforgiving August morning in 1872. The sun beat down with relentless fury, turning the air into a shimmering haze. John and Thomas were clearing a new section of their meager farmland, battling the tenacious, thorny mesquite bushes and stubborn prairie grass, their faces streaked with sweat and dust, their muscles aching. As Thomas swung his heavy pickaxe into a particularly dense patch of resistant earth, the metal struck something impossibly hard, something deeply embedded, sending a jarring, painful vibration up his arms, numbing his fingers. "Pa! A rock, bigger than any I've seen, and it's humming," he called out, his voice echoing eerily in the dry, still air. John, his brow furrowed with concern, joined him, and together, with a shared sense of growing unease, they began to dig around the obstruction. What they slowly, painstakingly uncovered defied all geological explanation, all rational understanding. Buried partially in the earth, its colossal, perfectly smooth obsidian black top jutting out like a colossal, ancient, and impossibly sharp tooth, was an immense, utterly featureless megalith. It stood roughly 20 feet in height and perhaps 10 feet in width, its surface absorbing all light, reflecting nothing, an unblemished void. It was unlike any rock formation known to the Texas plains, utterly alien to its environment, a profound intrusion. As they stood before it, awestruck and profoundly uneasy, a low, rhythmic, almost conscious hum began to emanate not from the air but from the stone itself. It was not a sound audible through their ears, but a deep, pervasive vibration that resonated directly within their bones, within their very skulls, a silent internal summons that seemed to bypass their sensory organs entirely, burrowing directly into their minds. Thomas, initially filled with a youthful fascination, now felt a strange, spreading numbness and coldness in his right hand. The hand that had first struck the stone, a coldness that no amount of scorching sun could dispel. John, a man of profound, traditional faith, felt a deep, unsettling disquiet, a chilling dread that transcended the relentless heat of the Texas sun, a sense of an unholy presence. He felt an undeniable pull, a strange, magnetic, almost hypnotic urge to touch the stone, to understand its secret, to surrender to its hum. He resisted with all his formidable frontier pragmatism, his rational mind battling a creeping, inexplicable, and utterly terrifying fascination that threatened to overwhelm him. They tried desperately to remove it, to dig around it, to dislodge it, but the stone seemed to extend impossibly deep into the earth, its weight immeasurable, its presence immovable, an unyielding, silent monolith. It was rooted to the very land, an ancient alien anchor, a focal point of an unknown power. News of the peculiar humming stone spread quickly across the isolated plains, carried by garrulous itinerant peddlers, curious ranchers, and the occasional fearful native tribesmen who had glimpsed its dark silhouette. Many came, drawn by a morbid curiosity, to witness the marvel, the anomaly, but few dared to linger for long. The pervasive, insidious hum that seemed to penetrate one's very being, the subtle, radiating coldness it exuded, and the profound, growing sense of unease it instilled in all who approached, kept most at a respectful, fearful distance, driving them away. John and Sarah, despite their profound, growing unease and the palpable dread it inspired, tried, in their desperation, to rationalize the stone's existence. They saw it as an inexplicable, perhaps even divine sign, a test of their faith, a mysterious blessing. They tried to integrate it into their lives, building their fence line around it, carefully avoiding its immediate perimeter, hoping its presence would bring some unknown prosperity, some strange protection to their struggling homestead. But the stone, they would soon discover, seemed to have other, far more insidious intentions. Its hum intensified subtly, insidiously, with each passing day growing stronger, more insistent, more personal, particularly at night, when the world was silent and the mind was vulnerable. Emily, now acutely sensitive to its omnipresent presence, complained of sleepless nights, her sleep haunted by terrifying, monstrous, vivid dreams, filled with swirling alien geometries, impossible colors, and her profound cosmic awareness that was undeniably not her own, invading her very thoughts. She began to obsessively draw these strange, intricate, impossible geometric patterns in her journal, precise, otherworldly designs that defied human logic or earthly inspiration, patterns that seemed to vibrate with the same low, resonant hum. Her once bright, curious eyes began to show a vacant, distant look, a profound inner emptiness, and her movements grew slow, deliberate, almost mechanical, as if she were a puppet on invisible strings. Thomas, who had been the first to strike the stone with his pickaxe, found the insidious coldness in his right hand spreading relentlessly up his arm, leaving it numb, strangely pale, and almost useless. He complained of a persistent, dull ache in his bones, a coldness in his marrow that no amount of scorching sun or roaring fire could dispel, an internal chill that defied all warmth. He began to hear whispers in his mind, soft, inviting, seductive voices that promised profound understanding, offering to reveal the secrets of the universe, of existence itself, if he would only listen to the hum, embrace the stone's truth, surrender to the knowing. The Miller family's profound isolation, once their greatest strength against the world, now became their greatest vulnerability, their most terrifying trap. Their distance from any organized community, any form of external support, meant there was no one to witness their slow, terrifying descent into madness and transformation, no one to offer aid, no one to intervene, no one to believe their impossible tales. Sarah, a woman of deep, unshakable faith, initially believed the stone to be a powerful, albeit mysterious, manifestation of God's immense power, a profound test of their devotion, a trial to be overcome. But as Emily's condition rapidly worsened, as Thomas grew increasingly withdrawn, silent, and severely afflicted by the relentless, spreading coldness, Sarah's faith began to crack, slowly, irrevocably, replaced by a profound, gnawing terror that threatened to consume her very soul. She spent hours praying by the colossal humming stone, kneeling in the dust, begging for answers, for deliverance, for God's divine intervention. But the only response was the ceaseless vibrating hum, which seemed to grow stronger, almost mocking her desperate pleas, an indifferent, ancient power. John, ever pragmatic, ever stoic, tried desperately to ignore the supernatural elements, seeking any semblance of rational explanation, clinging to the familiar. He dug furiously around the base of the stone, tried to chip pieces off with his strongest tools, even attempted to blast it with a small amount of carefully hoarded dynamite, hoping to find its source, its core, its weakness. But his tools simply glanced off its impossibly hard, unblemished surface, leaving no mark, no scratch. The stone resisted all efforts, its alien nature defying physical intervention, defying all known laws of metallurgy and geology. He noticed, with a chilling sense of profound wrongness, that the plants closest to the stone, particularly the tenacious prairie grass and the hardy mesquite bushes, grew with an unnatural, almost grotesque vigor, their stalks thick and dark, almost black, their leaves turning a metallic, unnatural sheen, pulsing faintly in sync with the hum. He felt a profound sense of wrongness, an ancient, predatory malevolence emanating from the smooth, black, impenetrable surface, a cold, watchful intelligence. The true, undeniable horror, the point of no return, began with Emily's disappearance. One evening, as the relentless Texas dusk settled over the plains, casting long, eerie, distorted shadows that seemed to stretch and writhe with unseen life, Emily was seen walking slowly, deliberately, towards the humming stone, drawn by an invisible, irresistible, magnetic pull that controlled her every movement. Her eyes were wide, black, and utterly vacant, reflecting only the endless, indifferent sky, devoid of all individual thought, her face serene, almost beatific, a mask of profound alien peace. John, Sarah, and Thomas, watching in numb horror from the dusty porch of their cabin, cried out in unison, their voices raw with terror, and ran after her, stumbling, desperate to intercept her. But she moved with an unnerving, impossible speed, a dreamlike fluidity, her bare feet making no sound on the dusty earth, as if she no longer truly existed in the physical realm. As she reached the very base of the colossal megalith, the omnipresent hum intensified to a deafening, skull-shattering crescendo, vibrating through the entire plane, through their very bones, threatening to tear them apart from within. The air around the stone shimmered violently, distorting the very light, making it seem to pulse with a faint, insistent bluish-white glow, an internal alien light from a hidden dimension, a glimpse into an unknowable cosmos. Emily, with a final, serene, profoundly disturbing smile that stretched her lips unnaturally, reached out her hand and pressed it slowly, deliberately, against the cold, black, unyielding surface of the stone. Her form rippled, wavered, blurred at the edges, and then, with a silent, blinding flash of bluish-white light that seared their eyes, she simply dissolved, absorbed into the stone, leaving no trace behind, no physical evidence of her existence, only a searing void. The deafening hum faded to a low rhythmic thrum. The air grew still, but the coldness around the stone intensified dramatically, a palpable aching void, a wound, in reality. Sarah screamed, a sound of pure, primal, maternal agony that tore through the vast, empty plains, a sound that would haunt her remaining days. John stood frozen, his face a mask of profound horror, utter despair, and dawning, terrifying comprehension. Thomas, his right arm now a numb, pale, useless appendage, completely devoid of warmth or sensation, simply stared at the colossal stone, his eyes wide, black, and utterly vacant, a strange, detached, serene smile slowly forming on his lips, mirroring Emily's final, chilling expression. He was the next one. The stone had claimed its first, and its influence was rapidly consuming the next, slowly, insidiously, preparing for its final act of assimilation. The disappearance of Emily, so utterly impossible and horrifying, shattered the Miller family's world beyond repair. Sarah, her once unshakable faith irrevocably broken by the sight of her daughter's impossible demise, fell into a deep, inconsolable grief, a profound, soul-crushing despair. She would spend hours staring blankly at the colossal humming stone, now a chilling monument to her lost daughter, a maw that had swallowed her whole, muttering prayers that turned into choked sobs, weeping uncontrollably, begging for Emily's return, for any sign of her. But the stone remained utterly silent, its low rhythmic hum the only response, a constant mocking thrum in the air, an indifferent, ancient power. John, his stoicism finally crumbling, his mind reeling from the unfathomable horror, was consumed by a desperate, burning need for revenge, for understanding, for a way to fight this alien entity. He tried everything imaginable. He brought out his most powerful tools, swung his heaviest sledgehammer. He even attempted to blast it with a large quantity of carefully hoarded dynamite, the explosions echoing uselessly across the plains, but the stone remained utterly impervious, absorbing all attacks. Its black, featureless surface untouched, unblemished, mocking his every effort. He realized with chilling, soul-numbing clarity that the stone was not merely a geological anomaly, a strange rock. It was a living, conscious, predatory entity, ancient beyond human comprehension, an alien mind embedded in the very earth, drawing its sustenance, its very life, from human consciousness, assimilating identity, growing, expanding, becoming. He began to research with a frantic desperation, poring over old settler journals, obscure native legends gleaned from frightened travelers, anything that might hint at the stone's unholy origin or its weakness. He discovered fragmented tales of sky stones that descended from the heavens in ancient times, of dream stealers that whispered in the mind, twisting reality, and of earth hearts that consumed life, making all things part of themselves. He learned that the hum was its primary tool, a psychic resonance that gradually eroded the individual will, making victims receptive, eager for its assimilation. The pulsing bluish-white light was its true manifestation, a terrifying glimpse into its alien consciousness, its primordial awareness, Meanwhile, Thomas's terrifying transformation accelerated with an alarming speed. The coldness had now spread through his entire right side, from his fingertips to his shoulder, leaving it numb, pale, useless, and strangely stiff, like a limb made of cold stone. He spent his days in a dazed, serene, almost beatific state, muttering incoherently about the patterns in the sky, the song of the earth, and the great knowing, phrases that resonated with an alien wisdom. His eyes, once so clear and bright, were now wide, black, and utterly vacant, reflecting no light, absorbing everything, like the surface of the stone itself, portals to an inner void. He began to draw intricate, impossible geometric patterns on the walls of their cabin with charcoal, patterns that mirrored the strange designs Emily had sketched before her disappearance, patterns that seemed to vibrate with the same low, resonant hum. He sometimes spoke with a multi-layered voice, a chorus of many voices, some familiar, some alien, promising profound peace, offering profound understanding, beckoning his heartbroken parents to join the song, become one with the stone, find true belonging. Sarah, horrified, her maternal instincts screaming in protest, tried desperately to reach her son, to pull him back from the brink of oblivion, but he merely smiled, a serene, empty, utterly alien smile that sent shivers down her spine, and continued his strange drawings, his words echoing with an unholy serenity, a detached, terrifying calm. John, his heart heavy with a grief that threatened to tear him apart, realized with a crushing, undeniable certainty that Thomas was no longer his son. He was a conduit, an extension, another absorbed consciousness, a new voice in the stones, ever-growing chorus, a puppet on unseen strings. John, consumed by a desperate grief that threatened to shatter his very soul, and an overwhelming sense of existential urgency, formulated a desperate, audacious plan. He believed the stone, while undeniably powerful and seemingly indestructible, might possess a singular vulnerability, its point of assimilation. He theorized that the moments just after it consumed a new consciousness, when its vast alien mind was distended, integrating the new information, the new identity, might be its weakest, most vulnerable point. He spent weeks in secret, working relentlessly in his crude makeshift workshop, modifying a colossal old steam-powered threshing machine, transforming it into a grotesque, unprecedented weapon. He added massive metal plates, meticulously designed to resonate at specific, profoundly discordant frequencies, hoping to create a counter-vibration, a resonant frequency that could shatter the stone's psychic hold, perhaps even wound or destroy the sentient entity within. His plan was audacious, desperate, and almost certainly suicidal, a final desperate gamble against an incomprehensible foe. But he had nothing left to lose. His family was gone, his life shattered. He would sacrifice himself, if necessary, to stop the humming stone, to prevent it from claiming Sarah, from consuming any more innocent souls. Sarah, witnessing John's grim, unwavering determination, the desperate, haunted light in his eyes, knew she couldn't stop him. Her own mind, too, was beginning to feel the subtle, insidious pull of the hum, the spreading coldness in her own limbs, a chilling familiarity. She realized, with a chilling certainty that settled deep in her bones, that the stone's hunger was growing, its influence spreading, its patience waning. It wanted all of them. John's eyes, though filled with a desperate, self-sacrificing light, held a quiet, terrifying resolve. The plains had taken everything from him, his children, his dreams. He would not let them take his soul, nor his beloved wife's. He would make a final, desperate stand against the cosmic horror that had descended upon their desolate homestead, a lone, broken figure battling an ancient, alien intelligence for the very essence of humanity. The scorching Texas sun beat down relentlessly, mirroring the burning fire of resolve in his heart, illuminating the dust-filled air around the humming stone. John Miller, a man broken by grief but forged anew by an unyielding, desperate resolve, moved with a grim determination. The colossal obsidian black humming stone stood as a silent, malevolent sentinel in the heart of his ravaged homestead, a monument to his lost children and a gateway to an unimaginable horror. He had spent weeks in secret, working relentlessly, under the searing Texas sun and the watchful, indifferent stars, transforming an old, decaying steam-powered threshing machine into a grotesque, unprecedented weapon. His engineering mind, once applied to the precise mechanics of industry, was now bent to a desperate, almost insane purpose: to construct a device capable of fighting a cosmic sentient entity that defied all earthly understanding. He had meticulously added massive metal plates, salvaged from an old wagon, designed to resonate at specific, profoundly discordant frequencies, hoping to create a counter-vibration, a resonant frequency, a psychic sonic assault that could shatter the stone's insidious mental hold, perhaps even wound or utterly destroy the ancient entity within. His plan was audacious, desperate, and almost certainly suicidal, a final, desperate gamble against an incomprehensible foe. But he had nothing left to lose. His beloved children, Emily and Thomas, were gone, his life shattered, his dreams turned to dust. He would sacrifice himself, if necessary, to stop the humming stone, to prevent it from claiming Sarah, his last remaining tie to sanity, from consuming any more innocent souls. Sarah, witnessing John's grim, unwavering determination, the desperate, haunted light in his eyes, knew she couldn't stop him. Her own mind, too, was beginning to feel the subtle, insidious pull of the hum, the spreading coldness in her own limbs, a chilling familiarity that echoed the fate of her children. She realized with a chilling certainty that settled deep in her bones that the stone's hunger was growing, its influence spreading, its patience waning. It wanted all of them. John's eyes, though filled with a desperate, self-sacrificing light, held a quiet, terrifying resolve. The plains had taken everything from him. He would not let them take his soul, nor his beloved wife's. He would make a final, desperate stand against the cosmic horror that had descended upon their desolate homestead, a lone, broken figure, battling an ancient alien intelligence for the very essence of humanity, for the survival of his last beloved. The scorching Texas sun beat down relentlessly, mirroring the burning fire of resolve in his heart, illuminating the dust-filled air around the humming stone, a stage set for a final terrible confrontation. The day of John Miller's desperate gambit dawned with a deceptive, almost mocking tranquility. The Texas sun, a merciless orb of fire, climbed slowly into an impossibly vast and cloudless sky, promising another day of scorching heat. A hot, dry wind, smelling faintly of dust and distant mesquite, swept across the plains, carrying no hint of the cosmic battle that was about to unfold. John had spent the pre-dawn hours making his final preparations, his face grim, his movements precise. He had positioned his monstrous threshing machine, now a grotesque amalgamation of metal and repurposed parts, directly in front of the humming stone, its huge flywheel a silent, menacing sentinel. Sarah, her face pale and drawn, her eyes swollen from a night of tearful, desperate prayers, stood by the cabin door, a shotgun clutched in her trembling hands, her body rigid with a mixture of terror and a profound, desperate love for her husband. She knew this was likely a one-way trip, a sacrifice. She watched as John, after a final, long look at his beloved wife, climbed onto the operator's seat of the machine, his silhouette stark against the rising sun. He wore his worn work clothes, but his expression was that of a man heading into battle, his every nerve steeled against the unimaginable. He gave her a single firm nod, a silent farewell, then turned to face the humming stone. The air around the megalith shimmered with an almost invisible heat haze, yet the pervasive cold it radiated was undeniable, a chilling anomaly in the scorching heat. The low, rhythmic hum, usually a subtle undertone, began to intensify, throbbing deep within the earth, a sound that seemed to welcome John's challenge. As John engaged the ancient machine, its steam engine sputtering to life with a loud metallic cough, the rhythmic clang of its pistons began to echo across the plains, a discordant challenge to the stone's alien hum. He slowly increased the throttle, and the massive flywheel began to turn faster and faster, building momentum, its enormous metal plates vibrating. The carefully chosen, discordant frequencies began to propagate, not as an audible sound, but as a deep physical resonance that clashed with the pervasive hum of the stone. The air between the machine and the megalith shimmered violently, distorting the very light, creating a visible field of clashing energies. The humming stone, which had always seemed utterly impervious, reacted. Its black featureless surface began to glow with a faint, insistent bluish-white light, pulsing erratically, violently, in direct opposition to the machine's counter-vibrations. The low hum, which had previously been a hypnotic drone, now fractured into a cacophony of agonizing, screeching discord, 1,000 alien voices crying out in pain, a chorus of suffering that seemed to tear at the very fabric of the air, threatening to overwhelm John's senses. He clutched the controls, his knuckles white, his teeth gritted against the overwhelming assault. He felt a profound psychic pressure building in his mind, a crushing weight of alien consciousness, attempting to invade, to assimilate him, to break his will. He saw fleeting, horrifying images flash through his mind. Emily's vacant smile, Thomas's black eyes, the indistinguishable faces of countless other absorbed souls, all merged into a single, vast, alien entity, pleading, promising peace, demanding surrender. Join us, John. Become one. End the pain. The collective consciousness whispered directly into his thoughts, a seductive, horrifying lure. He fought back, his sheer human will a desperate bulwark against the cosmic horror. The struggle was a terrifying, unseen battle of wills and frequencies, an agonizing war between man and an ancient alien intelligence. John pushed the machine harder, the threshing engine groaning under the strain, its repurposed metal plates vibrating with all their might. Sparks flew, steam hissed violently, and the ground around the stone began to visibly crack and fissure. Under the immense clashing energies, the bluish-white light from the stone intensified, flaring with blinding rage, reflecting the cosmic fury of the entity within. The agonizing screeching from the stone became unbearable, a sound that seemed to tear at his very soul. Yet John held firm, his desperate resolve unyielding. He knew this was the maw's moment of vulnerability, stretched thin as it fought his. Machine's assault, its assimilation process, disrupted. He had to maintain the counter-frequency to hold the line. Suddenly, from the base of the humming stone, a new horrifying phenomenon occurred. The ground around it began to swell and rupture, not like earth but like living flesh, tearing apart. From the newly formed fissures, thick, black, viscous tendrils, organic and pulsating, began to emerge, lashing out towards the threshing machine, towards John. They moved with an unnatural speed, striking the metal chassis of the machine with sickening thuds, attempting to coil around its moving parts to grasp John himself. He ducked, narrowly avoiding a tendril that lashed out at his head, its black, glistening surface smelling of decay and raw earth. The hum from the stone pulsed with fury, now a desperate, enraged roar, no longer a seductive whisper. Sarah, watching from the cabin, her heart pounding with terror, saw the horrifying tendrils erupting from the earth, reaching for John. Her husband, her love, was fighting an impossible battle. Her earlier prayers had turned to desperate pleas, but now, seeing the physical manifestation of the horror, a new resolve hardened her. She knew she couldn't reach him, but she could distract. She remembered John's words, his warnings about the stone's vulnerability during assimilation. Thomas. Her son Thomas, now a hollowed vessel, had been drawing the stone's patterns in their cabin, muttering its strange chants. She saw Thomas emerge from the cabin, drawn by the escalating. His vacant eyes fixed on the battle. He moved with the same serene, empty expression, walking slowly towards the humming stone as if to rejoin his true master, his cosmic parent. A desperate, horrifying idea sparked in Sarah's mind. She raised her shotgun, her hands trembling, aiming at her own son. It was the most agonizing decision of her life, a betrayal born of the deepest love. But she knew that Thomas, as he was now, was no longer truly her son. He was an extension, a lure, a puppet. And if she could disrupt the entity's connection to its assimilated, if she could provide another trigger that was too dissonant, too shocking, it might create a greater vulnerability. With a sob that tore from her throat, she fired the shotgun. Blast ripped through the air, momentarily deafening, its sound a jarring counterpoint to the cosmic screeching. Thomas stumbled, his body twitching violently, and then, with a silent, blinding flash of bluish-white light, he too dissolved into a shimmering mist, absorbed, his physical vessel destroyed. The hum from the stone fractured further, a cacophony of agony, its pulsing light dimming erratically, its tendrils recoiling, lashing out blindly. John, seizing the momentary disruption, pushed the threshing machine to its absolute maximum. The gears shrieked, the metal plates vibrated with a furious, deafening roar, and the counter-frequency reached its peak, directly assailing the chime's heart. The immense ancient entity beneath the plains screamed, a silent psychic shriek of pain and rage that tore at John's mind, threatening to shatter his very sanity. The ground around the humming stone erupted violently, spewing black, viscous tendrils in all directions, writhing like dying snakes. The bluish-white light from the stone flickered, then dimmed, then surged with a desperate, malevolent intensity. John, his body convulsing from the psychic feedback, his mind on the verge of breaking, held firm, pouring all his remaining strength, all his grief, all his fury, into maintaining the counter-frequency. The threshing machine, overloaded, began to tear itself apart, gears grinding, steam pipes bursting, metal shrieking. He knew he had only moments left. He saw Sarah, slumped against the cabin door, her shotgun lying uselessly beside her, her face a mask of unspeakable grief. But her eyes, though tear-filled, held a flicker of understanding, of desperate hope. He would not let her sacrifice be in vain. With a final agonizing roar, John pushed a lever, locking the machine's throttle at its maximum. The engine exploded in a shower of metal, steam, and fire, sending massive, shrapnel-like pieces flying across the plains. The counter-vibration, amplified by the explosion, struck the humming stone with a final, cataclysmic force. The colossal megalith, which had stood for aeons, buckled. Its black surface shimmered violently, the bluish-white light flaring with a final, blinding, agonizing burst of energy, and then, with a soundless internal implosion, the humming stone simply ceased. The tendrils recoiled, dissolving into black dust. The hum vanished. The overwhelming cold dissipated, replaced by the scorching heat of the Texas sun. Silence descended upon the homestead, a profound, deafening silence. The cosmic horror was silenced. But at what cost? Sarah slowly, painfully, dragged herself across the dusty ground towards the ruins of the threshing machine, calling John's name, her voice raw with grief. But there was nothing left. The machine was a mangled wreck of twisted metal and scorched wood. John Miller was gone, utterly, completely absorbed by the final cataclysm. His body vanished without a trace, his sacrifice complete. She collapsed, in the dust, weeping, alone amidst the wreckage of her family, her home, her life. The humming stone was gone, too. Where it had stood, there was now a deep, jagged fissure in the earth, emanating a profound, unsettling coldness and a faint, lingering, organic smell, a wound in the very fabric of the plains. Sarah Miller, a woman who had lost everything, spent the rest of her days in solitary grief, haunted by the memory of her children's vacant eyes and her husband's desperate sacrifice. She never spoke of the humming stone nor the cosmic horror it contained, for she knew that some truths were too terrifying to bear, too alien to comprehend. She died a quiet woman in 1948, her spirit broken, her memories forever tainted by the hum. The official records of West Texas simply state that the Miller family, devastated by hardship and the unforgiving nature of the plains, eventually abandoned their homestead and disappeared, their names fading from memory, another casualty of the frontier. The disappearance of Emily and Thomas was attributed to lost in the wilderness, and John's to abandonment. No one ever returned to that desolate patch of land. The deep fissure where the humming stone had once stood remained, a scarred wound on the plains. Locals, sensing something profoundly wrong with the area, avoided it, whispering tales of the cursed earth and the place where the wind sings no songs. The ground around the fissure often felt unnaturally cold, even in the height of summer, and the prairie grass that grew there appeared sickly and stunted, its stalks dark and twisted. Occasional visitors, usually brave, foolhardy prospectors or desperate drifters, reported feeling a subtle sense of disorientation when near the fissure, and a faint, almost imperceptible low-thrumming sound, resonating directly within their bones. A chilling echo of the stone's former power. Some even claimed to hear faint whispers carried on the wind, calling their names, promising forgotten knowledge. But none ever lingered long. In the late 1980s, a team of geological surveyors from the University of Texas, conducting a routine study of seismic activity in West Texas, stumbled upon the remote, long-abandoned Miller homestead. Their instruments detected unusual seismic anomalies emanating from the deep fissure where the humming stone had once stood. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a massive, non-geological cavity far beneath the surface, emanating strange, low-frequency sonic waves. Their report, filled with bewildered speculation, was eventually classified and buried by obscure government agencies citing geological instability and potential national security implications, familiar bureaucratic euphemisms for something far more sinister and inexplicable. One of the lead geologists, Dr. Elizabeth Thorne, however, a driven and brilliant woman, kept private copies of their unsettling findings. She developed an obsessive, terrifying theory. The stone was not destroyed, merely fragmented and dormant. It was a living, growing, collective entity, feeding on psychic energy, on consciousness, and it was slowly regenerating, recovering. "It waits," she wrote in her personal journal, her hand shaking. "It learns, it adapts, and one day it will rise again, stronger, and when it does, it will not merely consume identities, it will consume the very essence of the plains, of the world, all of us. It will become the earth heart once more." Dr. Thorne, like Dr. Vance before her, mysteriously disappeared in 2008, leaving behind only her cryptic, terrifying journals and a profound sense of unease among her few remaining contacts. Her last entry, scrawled in a frantic hand, spoke of the hum growing louder and the dreams becoming too real, too inviting. Today, the remote, desolate patch of land where the Miller homestead once stood and the humming stone once pulsed remains officially designated as a wilderness preserve, access heavily restricted due to unstable geological conditions and unique protected subterranean ecosystems, bureaucratic euphemisms for something far more ancient and terrifying. The deep fissure remains a scarred wound on the plains, a silent testament to a cosmic horror. The sickly, stunted prairie grass around it, dark and twisted, still seems to pulse faintly in sync with an almost imperceptible, low hum that emanates from the earth. And sometimes, on particularly still, scorching nights, when the stars are impossibly bright and the desert wind falls silent, travelers who stray too close to the area claim to hear it, a faint, almost imperceptible hum, a deep, resonant vibration. That seems to come from beneath the very earth, a ghost of a sound, a promise of a terrible future, a summons from the depths of a primordial consciousness. They say it's merely the wind or the distant rumbling of trains, but in their eyes there's a flicker of ancient fear, a profound inherited knowledge of the humming stone still beating, waiting patiently, silently, beneath the silent plains, for its next harvest of souls. And when it rises again, what will it claim? What new forms will it take? And for whom will its terrifying, silent hum finally toll? Will it be for you? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and support us for more content like this.